Hello and welcome to the Hooniverse and to a brand new video. Now, have you ever walked into a room and forgotten what you went in there for? Well, imagine a creature you can't remember and what powers it would have. The moment you look away, it ceases to be in your mind, but what it can tell you sits snug in your subconscious. You could be doing something without ever realizing why. These creatures don't have a name, only a belief. They are known as the Silence, standing at 7 feet tall with an appearance strongly resembling the painting of the Scream by Norwegian artist Edvard Munch. They are as creepy as it gets, shockingly powerful and incredibly deadly for a certain bow tie wearing Time Lord. In this video we'll answer why the Silence wanted the Doctor dead, how much influence they had over history, and try and piece all of their history together. And we are going in depth. We're covering the TV series, audios, comics, games, anything and everything we can find about the Silence. So, their story begins in the far future where religion has moved on with a more militaristic approach, with clerics and bishops now soldiers. The Church of the Papal Mainframe and its leader Tasha Lem benefit from the use of confessional priests, genetically enhanced and altered so that sinners and saints alike can be comforted knowing they won't remember their confessions. These creatures served the Church and its chosen faith, and during the time of the Church, a planet known as Trenzalore attracted the attention of all beings in the universe, from the deadly to the Doctor. The 11th Doctor investigated the farming settlement known as Christmas with Clara Oswald, after contacting the Church and hearing the Silence beckon for confessions throughout the corridors of the Papal Mainframe. On Trenzalore, a crack in the fabric of the universe was found, and it was discovered that the Time Lords were broadcasting a message through it. They needed to hear the Doctor's name, a test of knowledge, a question, the oldest question in the universe. Doctor Who? A question that, if answered correctly, would mean the Time Lords would be safe to come through from a pocket universe. So, at the end of the last great time war between the Time Lords and the Daleks, it saw the Doctor save Gallifrey, the planet of the Time Lords and Gallifreyans, by placing it in a pocket universe. Now the Time Lords wanted to come back to their rightful universe, but at what cost? The Papal Mainframe predicted that if the Time Lords came back, the Time War would begin again. All of creation, all of time would be threatened. The Doctor couldn't be allowed to speak his name. Silence must fall at any cost. The Papal Mainframe changed their faith to silence. The confessional priests, now known as the Priests of Silencio, or more simply, the Silence. The 11th Doctor dedicated his life to maintaining the peace. He wouldn't speak his name, however he couldn't leave as the Church would destroy the planet and all the innocents that lived there. The Siege of Trenzalore began, and the Doctor faced off against many enemies, from Sontarans to Cybermen. He battled against Ice Warriors, Autons, Krynoids, Weeping Angels, and of course Daleks, to name a few, all trying to control the universe's destiny, aiming to end the siege and the fear that came with it. The siege would last for hundreds of years, with plenty of tears, bloodshed and betrayal. The Doctor had to be stopped. The siege needed to end, or never begin. Madame Kavarian and her chapter of bishops, clerics and silent priests broke away from the Church. They used a time travel capsule roughly resembling the TARDIS to go to the past of the Doctor's timeline and enacted many complicated plans. The first plan had the chapter use an entity to disable the Doctor's TARDIS, controlling it and destroying it, taunting that Silence will fall. However, it was this attempted assassination of the Doctor that caused the very cracks in the universe that made the whole siege possible, the Destiny Paradox. The Doctor even managed to survive and save his TARDIS and the universe with the cracks left behind echoing this chapter's failure. Their second plan involved the priests integrating themselves into human history over thousands of years, during which time they abandoned their priestly collars and began wearing conventional black suits and white shirts. Having long since forgotten their original vocation as confessional priests, the Silence became twisted and cruel. The Silence were on Earth since the discovery of fire in the wheel, creating tunnel systems across the entire planet. They could be anywhere, not that anyone would ever remember. They relied on humanity's spark of invention and adaptation to create the asset they needed, a spacesuit as part of the NASA space project in 1969. But to get to this part of their scheme, the Silence had to control the human race for many years to come. In 30 BC, the Silence were documented in hieroglyphics and were present as a defense of Cleopatra's tomb under the influence of the Eye of Horus. Skipping forward quite a bit to 1561, the Silence tried to use a time storm to their benefit, with the 11th Doctor and River Song stealing their time capsule after their experiments with stasis field technology had been thwarted, and their piece of the eternity clock confiscated. And in 1605, a Silent was present within the Houses of Parliament during the events of the Gunpowder Plot. Now, a theory by the Doctor's companion Amy Pond believed that the Silence created the tribal belief that cameras steal one's soul, and were behind the Maury Island incident in 1947. It was also believed by River Song that the Silence had been responsible for the Philadelphia experiment, and had encouraged wars as a form of population control in the 1940s. A Silent was present at one of Adolf Hitler's rallies, and later it was theorized by Rory Williams that the rise of 1950s alien invasion films and 1940s to 60s UFO sightings were subconscious reactions to the Silence, and that the Silence made repeated thefts of Edvard Munch's The Scream to suppress imagery of them. By 1955, people in and around the Kelly Hopkinsville farmhouse experienced lights and sounds, but only a few alleged seeing aliens, and after interviewing witnesses, Air Force Division man Gary F. Hodson drew what people claimed to have seen, a creature that resembled a Silent. By 1961, Betty Hill and Barney Hill were abducted by Silents, who performed pregnancy tests on Betty. It became the most famous alien abduction in America. Plus, according to one account, a Silent was present during one of the Beatles' performances. So at this point, it's plain to see that the Silents have been manipulating humanity forever. In 1969 America, they finally had what they needed, a spacesuit that could be augmented with salvage technology to craft a weaponized exoskeleton which could control the user. The Kavarian chapter deemed the Silence couldn't come from negotiation, but instead death. Specifically, the death of the Doctor. They had the weapon. They then found a place and time too, the 22nd of April 2011, at the shore of Lake Silencio in Utah. This would be a fixed point in time, meaning whatever happened on this site couldn't be changed or altered. If the Doctor was killed, no one could change it, or time itself would decay and fall apart. The scene was set, but who would pilot the spacesuit? Well, this is where the plan gets even more complicated. Well, the Silents had witnessed the fear and the power the Doctor held as a Time Lord, so they created their own. They kidnapped the Doctor's friend Amy Pond after Rory and herself had spent their wedding night aboard the TARDIS. Amy would find herself pregnant, however, she was replaced by a flesh avatar, an exact duplicate. Meanwhile, the scientists of the Kavarian chapter worked on Amy and the child that was developing. Madame Kavarian, the Church of the Silence, worked alongside the Headless Monks on a base known as Demon's Run, farming the universe's limited knowledge of Time Lords and how they became what they are. They were brutal in their attempts to find an advantage, and they did. Melody Pond would become a proto-Time Lord, strands of DNA unique in the universe, and ones that Madame Kavarian was more than happy to make copies of. Melody would be capable of regeneration and possess impressive intelligence. Stolen from her parents, she would be trained by the Silence to become the perfect assassin. Now, this child was taken to Earth in her early days and raised by Dr. Renfrew at an abandoned orphanage in 1969. Later, she would be captured by the spacesuit before she escaped during the 11th Doctor's first battle with the Silence. Now, the girl roamed the streets of America before regenerating into her next incarnation called Mel's. She would find herself growing up alongside Amy and Rory, her parents in their school days. The family-to-be grew up together in a rather poetic manner, only for Mel's to one day meet the Doctor. Upon her request, the group travelled to Berlin during World War II, and at this time, the Tesselector, a craft that could look like anyone and was piloted by miniaturized people, was attempting to punish Hitler for his many crimes. Unfortunately, Mel's was caught in the crossfire between the two and found herself regenerating again. This time she would be known as River Song. This was the woman who would kill the Doctor. Her training activated, and within minutes she had been able to administer the poison of the Judas tree to the Doctor through a kiss, a weapon of love, not war. The Doctor couldn't regenerate and in fact died at the scene within a small time. However, River revived the Doctor using all of her remaining regenerations to bring him back. It turns out that River had come to idolise the Doctor, adore him, love him. The Doctor was important, and River realised this. He was kind to her and helped his friends no matter what. River wanted to become someone for him to be proud of. With the Doctor alive and River Song looking for the Doctor, the Silence had what they needed. She was found at the Lunar University, where she had become a doctor. She was captured and forced into the exoskeleton spacesuit. She was then placed in the lake, awaiting the Doctor's arrival at the fixed point in time. The Doctor had been made aware of his own death after stealing information from the Tesselector in Berlin. So after delaying for 200 years, travelling and later questioning members of the Silence belief, including Gantok, and the Tesselector posing as Father Gideon Vandeleur, the Doctor accepted his fate. The Doctor invited his friends Amy, Rory and River Song from a later point in her timeline to watch the end. So finally, back to the 22nd of April 2011 at 5:02 p.m, the 11th Doctor was shot dead by River Song in an impossible astronaut suit, a murder that would lead River to be imprisoned in Stormcage Prison, but completely forgiven by the Doctor. Now earlier I mentioned this was fixed in time, a moment that couldn't be changed or time would fall apart. Well, River Song loved the Doctor so much she drained the suit's weaponry so she couldn't kill the Time Lord. And just like that, time quickly fell apart, every moment in history happening at once, the time stuck at 5:02 p.m, and all decaying, all dying. The Doctor's allies took control of Area 52 within a pyramid with hundreds of Silence held in the tanks throughout. The Silence would continue to attack the Doctor, even in this new broken timeline, with iDrives being used by humans to remember the Silence, like external hard drives, turned deadly, causing agony or death. The Silence had their advantage and escaped. They were never even trapped, just waiting for the Doctor. Countless died fighting the Silence as the Doctor and River made their way to the top of the pyramid. Meanwhile, Amy saved Rory and ensured the death of Madame Kavarian, the woman who stole her melody, and ordered the death of her best friend. Kavarian was wearing an iDrive, and like everyone else's, it had been activated by the Silence. So, in this corrupted timeline at least, Kavarian was dead, killed by Amy in cold blood. At the top of the pyramid, the Doctor and River were married and shared a secret. The Doctor was going to survive his assassination attempt. He would be on the beach, but inside the Tesselector. He would survive and the universe would think him dead. All the Doctor and River needed to do was touch, and it would happen. Time would heal, and as they wed, it did. The timeline was restored, but that meant Madame Kavarian lived, and was still out there, but disowned by the Silence. Now she actually went further back down the Doctor's timeline and used DNA from Melody Pond's birth to create a whole host of proto-Time Lords, named after water, including Brooke, H2 and O. Brooke was placed as the 5th Doctor's companion and succeeding in killing him, before River Song intervened, turning the proto-Time Lords against Kavarian and saving the 5th Doctor's life. Kavarian was then imprisoned by H2, O and Brooke. Now, going back to the Silent occupation of Earth, which was soon over as the Doctor's friends were shocked to find a younger 11th Doctor invited to Lake Silencio. The group, on the vague instructions of the 200-year-older, supposedly dead Doctor inside a Tesselector, went to America in 1969 and stumbled upon the Silence. This was when the Silence lost River as a child, and when they lost control of humanity, with the Doctor using footage of the moon landing and a gloating wounded Silent to give the orders for humanity to kill all the Silence on sight. The priests of Silencio were finished, kicked off the planet, spare a few members. I told you it was complicated. Some Silence were even around in the early 2010s, when one attended the royal wedding of Prince William and Kate in the UK. Then, a group of Silence took refuge in Helena Fabersham's house. These Silence planned to regroup with the rest of their species in an attempt to escape from Earth. Unfortunately for them, UNIT attacked the house, so they decided that they no longer had a need for Faversham, and killed her. They started to use subliminal messaging to undo the Doctor's message to kill them from 1969, and then to trust a politician, Kenneth LeBlanc, altering a popular video with political propaganda. The Silence were powerful, whispering in the shadows, almost getting unit soldier Josh Carter to kill LeBlanc when their message had been sent. The Silence then decided to get off the planet, but destroy it in their wake. They manipulated the Earth's governments to the brink of war by using unit scientist Osgood to display all the spy satellites. The remaining Silence on Earth all transmatted to a Telocni ship, a peace-loving race, but when manipulated by the Silence they became hostile and got them to shoot the unit space platform. With the Silence gone from the planet once and for all, Kate Stewart used a photo of the Silence to instill post-hypnotic suggestion onto all governments, restoring world peace. For now. The Doctor would find members of the Silence scattered throughout space and time, most having abandoned their mission, but still full of hate and cruelty. And before we tackle these jumbled events, let's finish the story of the siege. The remaining party, still following the cause by the later parts of the Siege of Trenzalore, were attacked by the Daleks. They slaughtered everyone within the Papal Mainframe's church and turned them into Dalek puppets. The Daleks waited for the Doctor. The leader of the Papal Mainframe, Tasha Lem, recovered control of her body and helped the Doctor to fight the Daleks alongside the Silence. The once enemies were now fighting back to back, shoulder to shoulder, to save Christmas, Trenzalore and the universe. The siege ended with the Doctor having protected the planet for centuries, his body dying of old age. The Time Lords gave him more regenerations thanks to the emotional plea of the Doctor's friend Clara. The Doctor then used this energy to destroy the Dalek occupation of Trenzalore and the Dalek Parliament ship, ending the siege. Now with the Silence dispersed throughout not only time but up and down the Doctor's timeline, some acted out of hate and others peace. The 11th Doctor once saved a group of Ood and humans from a Silence attack. The Doctor would then go on to meet the Scream, a Silent so good at being a Silent that his own people forgot him. He craved to be remembered, so tracked the 11th Doctor and Alice, stealing their memories. He tried to make a powerful new body, a sapling which he could then absorb, spreading the Scream across the constellations, never to be forgotten. The Doctor and Alice fought to fully regain their memories as the Scream was able to make dozens of copies of itself, until the Doctor made him turn his back. And just like that, the Scream was forgotten. The Scream never existed. The Silence who wanted to be remembered, to feel home, was lost. Another notable Silent was a priest in the Sunset City during a gang war. This was a peaceful Silent, one who wasn't interested in the Papal Mainframe, a renegade who wanted to help those with guilt and take burdens away, to do their original job. The 8th Doctor encountered this Silent, trying to find a break from the Time War. Later in Sunset City's timeline, the 7th Doctor would encounter the same Silent priest working as a casino manager, with two of the opposing gang members working together to make a killing. Now the Church sent a group of enforcer Silents to end the renegade priest, and they didn't care who got in the way. There were other renegade Silents in the universe, with one being imprisoned by the Jadoon alongside many other dangerous creatures, and the 13th Doctor. Some Silents would be tasked with escalating a war between a wolf-like race, which Assassin Doom was tasked with assassinating. And finally, we have another undated event, when the 12th Doctor and Clara attended a cinema only to discover silent films with a twist. The Silents trying to alter people's behaviour through cinema. I think it's safe to say the Silents are more than one plot or plan. They are a movement made of a mysterious species. They are powerful and can be as equally corrupt and cruel. They've plagued the universe in their attempts to stop the Doctor. In trying to stop suffering, they simply created more. There are so many layers to their history, and more than I could have imagined when I began working on this video. I hope you've enjoyed the history of the Silents. It was a lot of work, and if you would love a separate video to dive deeper into any of the topics like River's sisters and the Scream, let me know in the comments below. For now though, that's the tangled tale of the unforgettably forgettable Silents. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.